Search fam, Sharde here. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Sharde. I am over here in this little bit of the internet, curating and co-creating a cool ass life. One thing about me as a photographer is I have a minimal kit setup, okay? Out of necessity, really, because I just don't have the budget to be buying all the things. But part of that has taught me that I really don't want a whole lot of gear, because I watch copious amounts of photography and tech equipment videos, gear videos, and I see like YouTubers with these lockers full of stuff, and I'm just like, the thought of it kind of makes me anxious. So I, for a number of reasons, tend to keep my kit small, mostly because our budget does not allow for a whole bunch of things at the moment. But I wanted to talk to you all about my low-key clutch lens that I use the most. I use it if I am doing sit-down vlogs. I use it for that. I use it for self-portraits. It has become my clutch lens, but let me show it to you. Hold on. We got to change out the lens. Okay, here we go. So I am a Sony shooter, and this is the 28mm f2 lens. It is native to Sony. It is probably the most used lens in my kit, if we're honest. Now, this little powerhouse is considered a wide angle lens at 28mm with an aperture of f2, which is crazy because most lenses with lower apertures, like the lower the aperture, the sort of larger the lens is, especially in comparison to like my 85mm f1.8 lens, which would probably be like a step down. It is one stop down in aperture from this one, but this has non-spherical elements, image stabilization. You know, it's actually pretty snappy to be a more inexpensive lens. I bought this used, and I'm pretty sure that I paid maybe $200 for it used. I bought it off of one of the meeting apps, like a marketplace app, and so I've had it for maybe 3 years now. And if I had to purchase a lens on a budget that did the things for vlogging, if you were stepping up your kit to a full frame camera and you wanted to be into vlogging or even street photography, I would probably get the 28mm, and I'll tell you why. My apartment is kind of small. Well, my bedroom in particular. I usually film at my desk area, which is in my bedroom. And I would take my self-portraits. A lot of my self-portraits are taken in my bedroom. There's not a lot of room. So it's really hard for me to do photos, especially social media photos where the orientation is vertical, with the 35mm f1.4 Sigma art lens that I have and I use for most of my portraiture. An 85mm is way too large for the space I'm in. So I usually use the 28mm. If you could tell from the image from the beginning of the video, which was used with the 28mm, it gives me a lot more room around me. Now I'm using the 35mm and it's a lot more cropped in. And because of how my microphone is set up at the moment, I can't sit the camera that much farther back, because that means the sound will, I'd have to speak louder, whatever the things are. Now, I will say that because this is a wide angle lens, that you have to be a little bit careful, especially when it comes to photography and portraiture, because there can be some distortion, especially with the lens. And I know that's probably another video that I should make about choosing your focal lengths, because depending on the focal length, the wider you get, the more distortion there is, especially on faces. It does not at all mimic the way that the eye sees like a 50mm or even a 35mm, which is standard focal length. But I think that it is just super clutch. Especially, I have traveled with this and my Sony a7 III, and that's all I've traveled with, and it does the job. I think the 28 millimeter focal length, for me at least, is really versatile, because you can take portraits with it, you can do environmental shots with it. It's especially good if you're doing things for social media, because you can get those nice environmental shots that we love. But in the case of, you know, having a small space, it's also very functional for being able to do, you know, talking heads, but also it's pretty fast as far as its responsiveness to putting things in front of the lens, taking things off the lens, like things, that sort of thing. And the video on it looks good. It, you know, goes down to f2, which is nice, especially if you're doing, say, street photography, or you're doing portraiture at night, because you can get a little bit more light in with the low aperture. No, it's not quite as low as an f1.8 or 1.4, 1.2, but you still can get a good amount of light into the camera from the lens by lowering the aperture, which means you don't have to bump your ISO up quite as much. And to me, that is really nice that you can probably get this. Let's see how much it costs online if you just wanted to purchase it today. So if you buy it new, it is retailing for $448. You buy it used, you can get it in the $300 range, which if you're on a budget and you're doing something like landscape or street photography, this is a good budget lens, outside of maybe getting a 50 millimeter lens, which the 50 millimeter 1.8 lens from Sony is probably one of the cheapest alternatives. But that lens is made, the body is made more of plastic. This, I don't know if y'all can hear that. The body is made of metal. The ring also made of metal, which is nice, but it's still a light lens. And I think if you are trying to keep your setup really compact, especially if you're working off of like an A7C, you don't have the money to invest into the new Sony G lenses that are like pancake lenses that have, I think, 2 or 2.5 aperture. You know, to me, this is a solid contender for adding to your kit. Let me know. What are you thinking as far as wide angle lenses? If you had a budget of maybe $500, what lens are you getting? For me, if I have $500, I would look for getting a used 28 millimeter f2 lens to give me that low aperture, and then probably the 50 mil 1.8, also used, because we're talking budget. As always, friends, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend about the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.